The dolly shot, when used in the right way, can have great emotional impact. It is also my favorite type of shot, and back when we were kids making movies at home, we would put the camera and tripod on a carpet and then push the carpet itself to achieve that movement. Fast forward, and we're now able to capture such a shot without even touching the camera. Let's take a look at the Power Dolly from CameTV. Motorized dollies aren't a new thing. They've been around for a long time. We've seen gadgets that produce amazing results, but most, if not all of them, are inaccessible due to their enormous price tags. Enter the Power Dolly, a wirelessly controllable device that allows you to get a perfectly repeatable movement with full control over speed and length at an affordable price. Use cases range from commercials, visual effects, interviews, podcasts, time lapses, and so on. Everything you see here was sent to us by CameTV, but free gear or not, we will always give you and CameTV our honest opinions. When purchasing the Power Dolly system, make sure to use the link in the description to get a percentage off at checkout and help us out with an affiliate commission. You can choose to include magnetic aluminum straight or curved rails in your kit, or only get the remote, motor, and dolly, and then make a dolly track separately based on the official rails guide. The motor has no distance limit, so technically you could make a 1,000-meter track and have the dolly run for days.
What's in the box?
In the box, you'll find the manual, remote, and wireless motor, both of which come with antennas and need to be connected for maximum signal stability. The build quality is solid, and overall each piece feels like it will last for a long time. The remote has a built-in battery that lasts about 2.5 hours and can be charged via the USB-C port while simultaneously being in use. The wireless motor can be powered with a V-mount battery, such as with these adorable mini V-mount batteries also from CameTV. As for the USB-C port, it can only be used for firmware updates. We don't have a specific battery lifetime for the motor, but we have twice now accidentally left it on overnight, and the next day the battery life indicator wasn't even halfway through, so in conclusion, the power consumption is minimal. Just make sure the remote is powered on the whole time you're using it, because if it shuts down, then the motorized dolly will stop as well. In the dolly bag, you'll find the compact foldable tripod holder alongside the manual wheels, so you can manually control the dolly, but you'd be mainly getting this device for the wireless motor. If you include the tracks in your kit, then you'll receive them tucked in nicely inside of this separate bag. To get started, you first set up either the straight or curved rails by connecting them via the built-in magnets, which aren't the strongest ones in the world, so sometimes we've been accidentally disconnecting them, but we found that putting sandbags on each end helps keep them connected and stops the track as a whole from moving around, since they are a bit light as well. Although the upside to them being light is you can move them around easily and get different shots without wasting much time, but just make sure not to drag or slide the rails along rough surfaces like we have done sometimes to avoid damaging them. Then you can open up the dolly legs and either keep the manual wheels on or switch them out for the motorized dolly by unscrewing the plate with the included Allen key. And because the devices are prepared from the factory, they will automatically connect to each other once we turn them on. To mount your tripod, you can tweak the tripod holding points accordingly, and once everything is in place, you can lock them down. If your tripod can't fit on the mounting points when fully extended, then you can bring the legs together slightly until they are able to fit. This will also raise the height of your camera, whereas sometimes you might need a low angle shot, so for that you can hook up a clamp to the dolly leg instead, and then mount the camera to the clamp like I did for this time lapse of the opening garage. Also, make sure the place you're setting them on is as flat as possible in order to get the smoothest and most consistent results. As I said before, this dolly can be used manually when you need it, and because of the soft surface on the wheels, you're able to get silky smooth shots, but the true power shines through when you use the motorized dolly. Again, I would highly recommend that you protect the dolly wheels as much as you can by not laying them on unprotected surfaces, because there's a chance you might get bumpy movement if the wheels are damaged along the parts that interact with the tracks. The remote has 3 mounting points, so we can rig it up to a C-stand, for example, and turn it on. This is the home screen, where you can see the battery level, which will have a lightning symbol next to it if it's being charged, the speed level, current play or pause state, which can be toggled with the buttons at the bottom, wireless signal, your A and B points, and the progress bar, which is controlled with the wheel. We can click OK to bring up the menu. The first thing I want to point out is that for some reason, the way you go forwards and backwards with the remote is inverted, so you press OK or the left arrow to go forward or confirm, and the right arrow to go backward or cancel. But once you get used to it, then it's pretty straightforward. Let's enter Calibrate. Here we can choose to either calibrate the dolly or the remote. If we choose remote, then we can limit the maximum and minimum points of the wheel, although so far I haven't had any need for this function. Once we hit start, we now use the up and down arrow keys to move the dolly to point A, click OK, move it to point B, click OK. And that's it! We can now either use the wheel to manually determine where we want the dolly to go, or click either the A or B letters to trigger the ping pong movement based on the speed you set, with the possibility of stopping or continuing the movement with the play pause buttons. If you want to change the A or B points afterwards, you actually don't need to go through the calibration process from scratch. Instead, you can hold down on the A button to remove that point, then use the wheel to go to a specific spot, then hold down on the A letter again to remap it. Same goes for the B point. You will, however, have to recalibrate in case your motor restarts. You have 20 levels of speed, with the slowest taking about 160 seconds to travel 1 meter, whereas the fastest takes about 11 seconds for that same distance. So for example, you could use speed 1 for time lapses, and then speed 20 could come in handy for, let's say, a walk and talk. However, in this shoot, for example, the subject had to purposefully slow down their walk because the power dolly couldn't keep up. But that actually worked in our favor because she had to read off of a teleprompter, so it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. Another thing to consider is that if you're manually moving the dolly with the wheel, then the speed won't go higher than 10 from what it looks like, but if you're using the ping pong A to B, then it will go up to the maximum speed of 20. Also, you can set the remote to automatically power off after a certain period of time, just in case you forget to turn it off yourself, but I have disabled that option since I don't want to risk the remote shutting down during shooting and stopping the dolly movement. As for the signal, CameTV told me that the maximum signal range is about 100 meters line of sight, and I don't know if you would ever have a reason to be that far away from the dolly, but either way, let's see how far we can take it. As you can see, by having multiple walls in between, it drastically impacts the connection. The motorized dolly is rated at a max payload of 20 kilograms, so it can carry quite heavy camera rigs, and with a speed set to 20, the motor is actually still pretty quiet. So unless you're in a really quiet room or for some reason need to keep the microphone close to the motor, then you shouldn't have any trouble with sound. On the other hand, if you use a light tripod and camera rig, then you might end up with some jitter. Another thing that can't be avoided is the shake you get when the camera comes to a stop or restarts the movement, but most of the time I end up cutting that part of the shot anyway. There are some other troublesome things when it comes to the power dolly. It's very tedious to get proper parallax with an orbiting shot that needs to keep the subject centered at all times without having to manually move the tripod head, which can be almost impossible to do while the motorized dolly is moving at the same time. You could try switching to the manual wheels, but then you'd have to not only move the dolly itself, but also pan at the same time, and if you don't have a sophisticated fluid head, then it's gonna be very tedious. One solution could be to mount the camera on a gimbal, mount the gimbal on the tripod, and then control the gimbal pan and tilt remotely while the motorized dolly is moving. But this isn't an ideal solution as it requires another piece of equipment as well as an extra person for manual control, which in turn negates the repeatability. I reached out to CameTV and asked them about a possible pan and tilt head device that could be paired with the power dolly, but unfortunately there is no such thing planned as of now. The point setting system is also quite limited. All you can have is point A to point B ping pong movement, and if you want to change the speed, you have to do it manually on the go. And that also usually takes time because you have to keep clicking on the arrows instead of being able to just hold down on it. Still, the Power Dolly with all of its current features is highly practical with its fast setup times and ease of use, infinite track length support, you have the alternative manual wheels for more hands-on shots, it's super compact so that makes it travel friendly, and all of those combined provide incredible value, especially for its price point. Again, don't forget to use the link in the description to get a percentage off at checkout, which will also help us out with a commission. If there's something we might have missed, then don't hesitate to drop a comment down below and we'll do our best to help you guys out. Thank you for watching and we'll see you next time. Peace out.